Good afternoon. I would like to call this meeting of Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee to order. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. Your image and/or voice may be broadcast. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so public comment. I don't believe anyone here wants to make a public comment. Just want to make sure. Great. Does anyone have any communications they would like to share before we jump right into the meeting? Okay, fantastic. All right, so tonight we are interviewing some interim superintendents. Just give me 1 minute. Here it is. Okay, so I'm sure there's people live streaming. So just so everyone is aware of how these candidates came to be. So Michael Wood works for the district right now. He works for TMS and he has been filling in the finance director role. And Albert Ganam was recommended to us by MASC. So what happens is when you're looking for an interim superintendent, you can reach out to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and they have a list of people that they will recommend to come in and do an interim stint in your district for a year, 6 months, whatever you need. So Al was the person that Tracy Novak had recommended to us, and he is here tonight to interview. So the way we're going to do this tonight, we're going to have each candidate come up. They'll give us a 2 to 3 minute introduction about themselves. And then each person on the committee has prepared a question. It will be the same question that will be asked of both candidates. And then after the questions are done, what we will do is we will have a 10 to 15 minute period where the candidate will be able to ask us questions. I don't want it to be a free-for-all, so the questions have to go through me, and then I'll see fit. You can raise your hand if you have something to say, or if I feel that, someone might be best suited to answer it. I'm so glad Janelle is here for all of the special ed stuff, and Renee, and I think John should be coming. So hopefully we'll have all of our bases covered. Paul's here as well. If we have any questions, so we can answer. All right, so without further ado, the way we're gonna do it is we'll have Al go first. Michael is not here yet. And then Michael will come. Al will go in the hallway, so he won't hear Michael's. Yep. And then we will be able to have both candidates go in the hallway, and we will deliberate on camera in public. And then we will vote and make a decision tonight. Thank you, Lori. Okay, Al, without further ado, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Good evening. Good afternoon, I should say.
Like borderline.
Yes.
All right. So whenever you're ready, you can start with a little introduction. And then we'll go around the table. And it'll be 5 questions. I do not have a question. I am just going to facilitate and make sure we cover all of our bases. If I feel like something is missing, I might ask it on the end.
Okay. So good afternoon. This is a little different for me. I'm usually on this side of the table. So thank you, Megan, for the introduction. If I could just tell you a little bit about myself. I know some of you guys have my resume, but for those who don't, I've been in education for a little over 30 years. I started out as an elementary school teacher in Worcester. I did that for a couple of years, and then I became an elementary and an assistant principal at the same time. Probably one of the toughest jobs I had in my entire career, doing both of those jobs together. From there, I was asked to become the assistant principal at Worcester Magnet School. It was the first magnet school in the city of Worcester, and that's where we're trying to de-isolation, bring students from all over the city into what was called a magnet school at that time. Worcester Magnet School, we based on Howard Gardner, his theories, and we really, we're drawing kids on that arts side, that right brain. So it was based on Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence. I was there for 13 years, I think, right around there. Very successful school, and even at this point, this is one of the highest performing schools in the state of Massachusetts when you're looking at MCAS scores as well. From there, I was asked by the superintendent to take over City View Discovery School, which was located in Worcester, true inner city school. A little over 700 students, 98% free and reduced lunch, bilingual, in expanded learning time day school. And that means it was a little bit earlier in the morning we started and a little bit later in the day as well too. From there, the new superintendent asked me to become the director of curriculum and professional learning for Worcester. So myself and my team oversaw the professional learning for 5,000 teachers in the city. And for the 25,000 students, we had to oversee all the assessments that took place. MAP testing, MCAS, and advanced placement as well too. I was there for about 3 years, and I applied for my first superintendent job up in the western part of the state, Hamden Wilbraham, which is a regional school district. Was there for 6 years, successfully passed and worked with the budget, and successfully passed 6 budgets that year. Hamden Wilbraham, a little difference of communities. The probably the most difficult part is the school committee is made up of seven school committee members, 5 from one community, 2 from the other. 80% one community pays, 20% the other pays, and trying to keep that equity there was really a challenge, but we were able to do that successfully 6 times, and made it through COVID as well too. I retired from Hamden Wilbraham. The school committee asked me if I'd stay on for 3 months more, so I stayed on and helped out with the new superintendent as they came aboard. I was retired for about a month, and I am no Tom Brady syndrome here. I'm happily married, 3 kids, been married for a long time. I just wasn't ready to retire. I didn't realize that until after I was retired. After about a month, I was like, okay, what am I doing now? So, my DNA makes it so I like to work. I enjoy working. That's my place. So I am currently right now the assistant principal and director of admissions at Veterine Academy, which is a private pre-K to 8 school that's located, Catholic school that's located in Worcester. It's run by the Sisters of Veterine. Love it. I've been there for a little over 2 years now. The director of admissions piece is a new piece for me, a new learning piece, and that's what I'm really enjoying there. Again, very happy there. I got a call, as Megan said, from Tracy Dover and said, hey, you're interested in Berlin-Boston Regional School District. Had a great chance to talk to Megan several times as well too. It's definitely something that I'm very interested in learning, interested in being a part of this. Spent the day yesterday traveling about. I appreciate a lot of people, Renee and John, giving me tours of the building. Spent some time in all the schools as well as in the municipal office as well too. It seems like it would be a really good fit for myself here, but that's important to make sure that I'm a good fit for you guys. I say the same thing to parents when they're coming around as the director of admissions and Veterine. I say it's got to be a good fit for both you guys and for me. And as much as they're interviewing me, I say we're interviewing you. And so as much as you're interviewing me, I'm interviewing you to make sure it's a good fit for me here, because that's extremely important. So I'm here to hear more about Berlin-Boston Regional School District and answer your questions as well too. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Okay, so I hate to put someone on the spot, but I'm gonna do Lisa. Because I already saw your question and it's great.
Hi, Lisa.
So Lisa will go first, and then we'll just go right around the table.
Okay.
Does that work? So Lisa, Mike, Julie, Jess, Lori.
And just point of clarification, answering Lisa, because I've been in some committees where they want to answer the chair and then go that way. Comfortable? Okay, good.
It doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with, and I think, I'm guessing, I don't know, Kyle, you can tell me, I feel like maybe a lot of people are live streaming this. I don't know, so I think there's a lot of parents and people in the community that are interested,
Great.
just couldn't make it, I get it home
Sure.
with kids, summer, really tough to get here at
Absolutely.
4:30 in the afternoon.
Absolutely.
So there, I think, yeah, if you want to answer towards the camera, so people
Sure.
are,
Sure.
is it a lot of people?
25.
That's decent, yeah, people want to hear. All right, go ahead, Lisa, sorry.
Hi, Lisa. All right.
So I'm sure you're aware that many parents are becoming concerned that schools aren't really partnering with them in their child's health and physical and mental health.
Yeah.
And that they're not being transparent about important issues that might be coming up regarding their physical and mental health. And likewise, they're also getting concerned about materials that they might be exposed to, that they might find controversial or objectionable. And so I'm wondering what your general feeling on that is, and also specifically, do you support the parental right to be notified about controversial topics and also to opt out of that?
So when I was the director of curriculum in Worcester for 3 years, the curriculum was a huge piece, right? I still believe that is the backbone of education, having a strong curriculum. That doesn't mean just a program, right? A lot of people consider a program to be the curriculum, whether it be Envisions or whether it be, literacy, keys of literacy. The curriculum, and that's the gateway to our children's education. And that's a really important piece of making sure that we're vetting that and looking through that. And really taking up to whether it be a math program, whether it be a social emotional program. I'm a strong proponent of PBIS, right? And that's the social emotional piece of that goes along with it. Everyone thinks it's just that reward system of PBIS, but there's a huge social emotional piece of that goes along with it. So I believe we're the gateway, and we need to really, the gatekeepers, I'm sorry, not the gateway, we're the gatekeepers, and really making sure the curriculum that's coming into our schools is vetted. And it's vetted through not only myself in the role that I was as director of curriculum, and hopefully vetted through myself as a superintendent, but also through my administration as well too, and also through the parents. So it's real important to make sure that people are having an understanding of that. And I think it's important to inform parents all the time. The more communication, the more transparency that we're giving families, the more transparent that we're giving the community about what's taking place. I think that's extremely important. Do I think that parents have the right to opt out? Absolutely. I think that's certainly something that parents have the right to do. We want our parents invested in this education as well too. So it's not an island that we're out there functioning. When we talk about education, it's a combination of the community, it's a combination of teachers and administration, and it's this family piece as well too. And those three have to be working together, right, to see where we're going to be in providing our education for our children. Again, curriculum is that backbone, and we need to make sure that we have a high quality curriculum for both social and emotional, and there's quite a few programs that are out there and curriculums that are out there as well too. So it's important that we vet that and get that information out to our families as well too. I hope that answered your question. If I didn't, feel free to ask me a follow-up.
It sounds like you really do prioritize trust and partnership.
It is. It's extremely important that, and the more people involved, the more we're all rowing in the same direction, right? So that's real important that we're all together and supporting each other as well too.
Thank you.
Thanks. And please, if I don't answer your question fully, please, don't hesitate to ask me a follow-up question. I hope if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, if anyone wants to ask follow-up questions, maybe we'll save it for the end.
Yep.
All right, Mike.
Sure, thanks. Hi, Mike.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
So just to introduce myself, I'm Mike Dobbin on the committee from Berlin. A couple of young kids in the elementary school over there, so.
Excellent.
Looking forward to this.
yesterday. Very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, good time with that.
Yes, absolutely. Very much. Very much.
I mean, he runs a park school. What
Yeah.
can I say?
Yep, absolutely.
So if I could I'll just read the question here. So you've worked in regional districts in your past, and you probably understand some of the unique challenges we had this year in our school district, especially getting a budget passed. So what experiences from your career will you draw on from, and how will they help you lead this district through this coming year? And if you were hired, can you tell us what your priorities will be in the next 3 weeks, and then in the first 60 to 90 days here?
And what was that second part? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so if you were hired, what would be your priorities based on what you know about our district in the next 3 weeks before school starts, and then in the first 60 to 90 days you're here?
So my first 3 weeks, I think the first thing, if I'm a successful candidate, is sitting down with the administrative team, right? Sitting down with the directors, sitting down with principals, and really seeing where we're at and making sure that we're ready for the start of school. That's the biggest piece. What's missing? What don't we have? Do we have enough staffing? Because this is the time of year where the staffing get that crunch time. Myself included the role that I'm in as well too. The second thing, in all honesty, is I would meet with the facilities director, making sure that buildings are ready. When I visited the schools yesterday, curbside appeal is a big thing to me, right? So even as a superintendent, my facilities director knew over him that the schools need to look like they're open, whether it's summer or whether it's the middle of the school year. And that's a huge piece for me. And I think we need to get them ready, both outside and inside. And that would be the conversation I have next after my administrative team and seeing where their needs are and what they're ready for. And making sure we're ready for that opening day. The second part would be that facilities director, bringing him in and making sure that we have everything we need, buildings are ready, buildings are prepared as well too. So those would be the first things I would do. The other part would be getting into the schools. I had a chance yesterday. I appreciate Renee and John both gave me a chance to walk around the schools, and they're great, but I really digging a little bit deeper and seeing what's happening in the schools and what we're ready for. Getting ready for those opening days, like opening professional learning teachers. I'm a big proponent of professional learning and making sure that we use that time wisely, right? A lot of families sometimes think that it's a half a day or a release time day, and those days are so important. It's extremely important to look in that professional learning so our teachers get better at their trade. Everyone needs to get better at their trade, right? I'm going to use the analogy again, and I apologize. Even Tom Brady had a coach, right? So we need our teachers need to have coaches. Our principals, myself included, need to get prepared and get ready and have that professional learning. So those are extremely important, making sure it's all in place and not sort of like flying by the seat of our pants. Okay, here's a half day, what are we doing, right? Instead of having that all laid out for the entire year. The 6 month thing, was it 3 to 6 months? Was that the second part of that question?
I said, yeah, 60, 90 days, yeah.
I'm a proponent of the school improvement plan, right? We need to look at what our school improvement plan looks like for our district. A lot of the times it just stays on the shelf, right? And that's a huge piece. And I had that conversation with John yesterday. That should be our guiding light, right? Everything else, there's a lot of things happening, and no one loves a blinking Christmas tree better than I do, right? But it's really about having that steady light. And if you have a strong school improvement plan, that's sort of your North Star. That's what you're looking at all the time. And there's a lot of things that come at you as a superintendent, as principals and administrators and teachers. But my theory has always been with my school improvement plans, if it's not on our school improvement plan for the next 5 years, great idea, we're gonna put it off to the side. Because what we should be focusing on is our school improvement plan. So that next phase would be that school improvement plan, making sure, because that will lead our district and hopefully lead the district for coming years. When I was getting ready to retire as superintendent of schools, that was the one gift, and John Provost, who came in after I retired, said, that was the best gift you could have given me, a completed school improvement plan. So that will be the work. The other part is getting into the community. One of the things that I'm known for is being in the community, both at Hampton and Wilbraham. You find many mornings in the senior centers, they had one in each community, hearing from the community what they wanted, getting people to know me as well too. I had an unbelievable administrative assistant when I became a superintendent. I kept a tight schedule, everything went through Kate. But the one thing that I insisted on was that 8 to 10 block. I didn't start my day in the office until 10 o'clock. And because the minute you get into the office, just get sucked in, right? There's a lot going on there. But from 8 to 10 every morning, I was in the school, I was in the community, I was visiting the senior center, I was out of school every single morning. That 8 to 10 block was sacred time. And everyone knew not to schedule me in at that time from 10 on, it was great. But that first couple hours, I was in schools. And I think that's an important piece of that role as well, too, getting in the community, building that trust, building those relationships, because very soon after that, we're preparing for the next year's budget. And we need to make sure that everyone's aware of what's taking place and the community are on board what's taking place. So if you were asking me what my schedule in terms of what I'd be doing for the next couple of months, that's what I'd be working on. You asked me a first part of the question, I don't think I answered it for you, I'm sorry if I did.
That pretty much covered it. I mean, I asked to draw from your experience in regional districts.
Yeah.
How you would handle the challenges we've had recently in
Yeah.
this regional district.
Regional school districts are tough, right? They're complicated. There's a lot going on there. Like I said, Hampton and Wilbraham, and I apologize, I keep referring back to them, but that's my mindset. That's where I came from. There was 5 to 2, right? Every single time, there was 5 on one school committee, 2 on the other. So trying to make sure that things were equitable, and that's important as well too. I even spent my time as a superintendent. I'd go a little bit in Hampton, get my coffee there. I'd go into Wilbraham and get my gas there, right? So that people in the community could see me as well too, because that's extremely important as well too. And families are paying attention to that, so that will be an important role for me as well to make sure we're both in Berlin and Wilson as well too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Julie. How are you?
Hi, good. All right, so my question is, I also wrote mine down. How is the role of interim superintendent different than the role of an appointed superintendent? Are there any differences? And can the district continue to grow with an interim superintendent, and how does that happen?
So I look at this 1 year with not a high quality teacher, the data shows it impacts the child for 3 years. 1 year of not having a high quality teacher. I imagine that's what it looks like as a superintendent as well too, whether it be interim or not. So I believe the roles are the same, right? There's many people that think that interim is just coming in and just keeping things afloat. And certainly that's a part of the role, but I envision that as a very small part of the role. Because my conversations with Megan, my conversations with Renee, my conversations with Julie, my conversations out in the community, John, I'm sorry, not Julie, but that great question, Julie. This indeed there, and it's time to do it now, right? And making sure, and whether it's a 1-year interim or a 2-year interim, it's making sure we get things in place so that we have, whether it be a school improvement plan, we have ready to move and ready to move forward. We constantly got to be moving forward. So I think it's, people might look at it differently. I would look at it as I'm completely invested in here as a superintendent, even if it's interim, and making sure that the work needs to get done. Because if it doesn't, the only ones that really suffer are our students and our teachers, and we need to make sure that's not. No one's looking, it's sort of like the substitute teacher, right? They say, all heck breaks loose when a substitute teacher comes in. It breaks loose because kids don't like that instability, right? They really like that day-to-day routine. So my job as a superintendent to make sure those day-to-day routines continue, but also that we're continuing to move forward so that we don't suffer a setback by any means, instead moving forward.
Thank you.
That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Great, awesome. Jess?
Hi, Jessica.
Hello, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
So my question is, what culture did you create and support in your past districts? And what culture do you hope to foster with the staff, school committees, students, parents, and the town's administrators and finance committees?
So it's all about that communication, right? It's all about that trust. I think it's extremely important. And one of the things that, like I said earlier, it was extremely important for me to be in the schools, right? And being there first thing in the morning when the kids are arriving, seeing the parent drop off, right? Seeing the bus drops off, getting a chance to talk to the families, getting a chance to talk to teachers. I mean, that's just who I am, and that's what I did. And my teachers and principals knew that. My principals first had a hard time when I first became a superintendent doing that but then they realized, like, I'm just there to have those organic conversations, right? And just sitting down and having those conversations, passing the hallway, walking with the principals and just saying what's happening, talking to those teachers in the hallways, talking to the students in the hallways as well too. That fosters that relationship. I go back to, when a parent, when a teacher has to call a parent because a student has an issue or they might be misbehaving or there's a concern about some academic piece. I used to tell my teachers at City View, it's a lot easier conversation if you constantly have that communication taking place with them. So they're not always getting that call saying, here's what I'm concerned about. And I feel the same exact way. So that this way, then no one's thinking that I'm just in that corner office, because that's not the superintendent I ever have been and will never be. So fostering that open relationship. The other part, and again, I attribute to my administrative assistant, like I have sort of an open door. And a lot of people say that, but I did. If people need to make appointments and come and sit and talk to me, I did that, but not from between 8 and 10. Anytime after that, I was there. And I'm not afraid of the hard work. I'm not afraid of the long days. And many, many times I'd have those meetings well into the afternoons and well into the nights as well too. And that was with an hour drive one way in Hampton and Wilbraham. I'm 8 minutes from here. When I did my timing yesterday and today, I'm a Worcester guy, but right on the border in that vertical area as well too. But many times you would have seen me very late in Hampton, Wilbraham, because sometimes it's the best time to get work done as well too. But to answer your question, fostering that communication, fostering that being present and not having to always be having those conversations when they're difficult, but having those conversations when it's just day-to-day and organic conversations.
Thank
That
you.
answer your question?
Indeed, thank you so much.
Great.
Last but not least.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Lori.
I'm from Boylston. So I'm gonna abandon my really fancy questions, and I'm gonna ask you kind of off the cuff. So
Okay.
so hopefully this comes out okay. You said you did a lot of research into our district,
I
and I
did.
know that,
Within the last 3 days, to appreciate that.
right, no, limited, but it's been hard for us since COVID. I think for a lot of districts. And I think, parents and citizens are concerned because it just seems like every time we get passed upon, we get into it, there's another one around the corner. And so what I'm wondering is,
Another,
just another, budget was, we had a hard budget
Yeah.
process, and that there's many pieces to that. So I think I have 2 questions. Number one, after doing your research, what made you say, yes, I want this? And number two, how are you going to make the parents and the citizens the taxpayers who don't have children in the school feel better about the fact that you're coming in here and you want to do this. This is like a positive challenge for you.
So again, I am currently with the Veteran Academy. Great spot. I thoroughly enjoyed it, right? Again, looking to learn always, right? Director of admissions was like something I never experienced. On the first impression when families are coming in, right, with their most precious possessions. We start our preschool at 2.9, right? They're coming to visit pardon my back, by the way. They're coming to visit us when they're 2.5 and 2 years old. They're young, so that first impression is so important to us. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. But when I got a chance talking to Tracy, talking to Megan, and doing a little deeper dive with Berlin and Boston, I had this conversation a little bit with John yesterday. So one of my favorite books, old school book, is Jim Collins' Good to Great, right? Whether it be working in industry, education, anything like that. This is one of the best books. In my first year as a superintendent, we did this book study across our entire community, and I'll share with you the other book studies we're doing now. But when I look at Berlin and Boston, they're very good schools. I looked into their data. Little concern, open and honest conversation here. Math, right? There's a little worry there when I'm looking at that data there. It looks like there's about 70% of students are doing okay, but there's still that 30% that aren't, right? And that's a concern. That's the ones we really need to worry about. But I think that this district is a good district, and there's a lot of really good things happening. But I think it could be great, right? And that's the whole premise of Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, right? The enemy of being great is just being good. And I think we need to do a lot digging deeper into some of the data that's out there. Data's not everything, right? That's one piece of it, but that's one piece that intrigued me. So it's one of those communities, and I felt the same way about Camden Wilbraham. And again, regional school districts are complicated, right? The budget's a huge pice, right? And I'm sure someone around here is going to ask me about the budget, but if not, I'll share my theories on that as well too. But I sort of like a challenge. And again, I'm retired, right? I'm walking my dog the other day. Someone says to me, "What are you doing off today?" And I said, "So I'm retired. I could be retired, walking my dog every day." But I enjoy, taking on a challenge. And I don't think this is a challenge, but I think this is a place to take something and move it forward. And every job I had, whether it be at City View, where, again, bilingual school, and I didn't really speak much Spanish at that time, right? But I took on that challenge and I wanted to make it better. Camden Wilbraham as a superintendent, brand new, no regional experience at all. They put me into a regional school district that at the point was closing middle school, and that's something I ended up doing, was closing one of the middle schools. I always enjoy learning more. I always enjoy moving things to the next level, and I always hope that I take things to a better spot. So when I leave whatever job I've had, and I haven't had that many sort of consistent along the road, that I hope I left them in a better spot. And so my goal, whether it be 1 year as an interim or how we categorize this, is to leave this place in a better spot. So it's at least moving in the right direction. As a district, especially regional, everyone's rowing, right? Everyone's working really hard, but I think the job as a superintendent is to make sure I'll row in the same direction. And sometimes that doesn't really happen. To answer your question about the community, it's a huge piece. And I think that was probably my one mistake I didn't really do well my first year in Camden Wilbraham, right? I got in there, they hired me in late July, I got in there was budget end of the year, we had to get that budget all set, and I was doing everything I needed to do. But that community piece and getting that emotional piece involved with the community members was a huge piece. So back to what I said earlier, many times I was at the coffee spot, right? Many times I was at both senior centers, a meeting with them, having sort of open forums and talking to those people and let them know what was taking place, because they're taxpayers and they're paying the budget as well too. And especially in particular in Camden Wilbraham, the population that had children was less than the population of people there. So I had to make them buy into what I was doing and believe in what they're doing and answer their questions as well too. So, when you see me at that coffee place, it's really not just because I'm having my coffee, but no one knows it better than I do, but it's because I was engaging in those conversations with a lot of the community members and having those, whether it be the town meetings and things like that.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So Thank you, everybody. So now we're gonna spend 10 minutes. You can ask us questions. That should bring us to about 5:15. And then that'll be perfect. We'll have 30, 40 minutes for Michael, and then we can vote. Oh yeah, one thing, Al.
Yep.
A few people in the community had, thank you, Jessica. So you and I had spoke about this, the ethics, a few people have reached out to me.
Sure.
That you self-reported yourself to the Board of Ethics in the state of Massachusetts. So could you just, I want it to be recorded on, so everyone hears it, so it's not my take on the story, but you explained to me, totally reasonable explanation to me. And honestly, I think it's a very moral and above board thing that you did, but please explain it so everybody can hear.
So, you know, I own that, right? And that's
Yes.
the type of guy that I am. So during COVID, we did really well with COVID. The best we could do in the end of what we were open September 10th. We had cohorts, we had cohort A, we had cohort B, it was unbelievable. We all lived through it. We had some remote groups that were 100 deep. I mean, some of our kindergarten were 100 deep. It was difficult finding staff and finding teachers at that time. My wife is a retired ESL teacher, was taught for many, many years. We couldn't find any teachers. And the biggest part, there was a reading group from 11 to 1. Literally was that time frame from 11 to 1 that we needed some help. Additionally, the kindergarten teachers were struggling with that remote, trying to keep it all going on. Posted a job, didn't get it. Posted a couple times, didn't get it. I'm sitting at the dinner table one night and I said to my wife, can you help us out here? She reminded me that she was retired as well too. I'm like, Lynn, we really need some help here. So she started doing that. School committee members were on there as well too. Their kids were on the remote that she was teaching, right? Posted a job, no one applied for it. School committee members all knew about it. Someone from the community said, hey, by the way, you're supposed to report that. There's a part, and again, I was new as a superintendent dealing with COVID, didn't really know that you're supposed to officially let the school committee know and get written permission. Someone reported that and said, hey, Al, you really need to do that. Told my school committee, and they were like, we know, we're good, but that's not who I am. So I'm the one that reported it to the ethics board. I felt like I needed to do that, right? So that's the type of person I am, right? So I didn't have to, but I self-reported myself because I needed to let people know that that's the place. They came back, as you can tell, there was no finding, right? There was no fault. A lesson learned that you in the future, if you hire someone that's your, family related, you need to let school committee officially know. But that just goes to show you the type of person I am, right? So I needed to make sure that I did this, and they came back with a couple of choices. Al, you could do this, you could do this, you can argue this a little bit more if you want to. I said, no, I made a mistake. I own the mistake. And that's one thing I always said, and I still say it, when you know what hits the fan, I'm the fan as a superintendent. When all heck breaks loose, I'm the fan. And so I needed to make sure that I own that as well too. And so that's why I self-reported that to the ethics board, and they came back with their findings. School committee had, my school committee had no concerns with it. As you can tell, they still employed me after that as well too. And then I ended up retiring, and the school committee kept me on for the next 3 months to work with the next superintendent. I could have retired, just for the record, many, many years ago. I didn't, because I was getting us through COVID, and I thought that was extremely important. But that was a great question, and I own it, and that's just who I am, and that's the type of superintendent you're gonna get, someone that owns his mistakes and don't try to put it off on someone else or something else as well too. But again, during COVID, we needed to do what we needed to do. And I probably would do the same thing again, but this time I'd let school committee know in writing, as opposed to just telling them on that way as well too. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I
Yeah.
really appreciate
Yep.
that.
But
We
I
had
do
talked
want
about that
it.
before.
I do.
Yeah, I just wanted it to, Al and I, that was the first thing I had asked.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
and, yeah, but I wanted it out there in public.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. So do you have questions for us?
I do. I have a couple of questions first,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yes, it is.
The first most important thing, and John and I had a chance to talk yesterday, is the budget, right? So
Yes.
that's the huge, end of the year reports coming up, a lot of things coming up as this time of year. So I'm curious what type of budget process you go through. One of the things I grew up with in Worcester, and I brought into Canyon Wilbraham, is a zero-based budgeting. Are you familiar with that zero-based
Yes.
budgeting? Do we do that here?
No, we don't. We should. What we do is we take last year's numbers, and so I'm just going by what has been done in the past.
Yep.
So they took last year's numbers and they added a percentage increase.
Yeah.
But the principals sit down,
Yep.
and John, you can speak to this. The principals usually work with the superintendent and the director of finance,
Sure.
and they'll come through and say, we need a new teacher, or we need to increase supplies by this amount because we didn't have enough paper last year.
Sure.
So John, do you want to add more detail?
And that's exactly how it works.
Okay.
We go through, the personnel part is already, it's all set, right? You know the teachers you have, the teacher you need to get. Part of the conversation with building principals and administration is, I need a new math teacher in the high school. That's not going to be somebody who's bachelor's 3, right? They're very hard to get. This is what it's probably going to cost us. We go through that part of the process. But and then the other piece, and this is usually the longer part, we look at our strategic plan.
Sure.
And we go, we promised ourselves we were going to fill in the blank,
Sure.
get a literacy coach.
Mhm.
What's that going to cost? What is that going to look like? And how do we spread that cost out to make it palatable for the towns? From there, it kind of goes behind the magic curtain of the business model.
Good. So
So to answer, I would like to do, I think zero-based budgeting, I mean, in finance, that's kind of how
Sure.
combination. But yeah, I think if we just haven't done it before, I don't think that necessarily means we can't do it that way.
It's tough to introduce it. Is everyone familiar with a zero-based budget? In case for those, I sometimes we throw acronyms around as educators and sometimes. So zero-based budgeting is you start at zero every single year, right? Whether it be my directors, whether it be my principals, your budget is zero. You start there and you build your budget. So it's not just adding on to last year's budget, you build it every year. And what I did is I have my principals and my directors, they build their budget starting at zero, what they need. They come in and they meet with myself and the director of finance, and they build the budget from zero. But the one piece that everyone that has ever worked for me knows that when you're building that budget from zero, the one focus that always has to be part of that conversation is about the child, right? So that's the North Star, and I use that over and over again, and anyone that knows me knows that, right? You're building a budget based on how that's going to impact that child, how it's going to impact our students in the district. And you build it from zero, and you build it up, and then basing it on how it's going to impact our students, whether it be an extra math teacher, whether it be curriculum, how it's going to impact our children. And that's the conversation that I have with not only the school committee, I have with the select board, I also have with the community, right? Here's our budget, we're building from the very beginning. It's not just adding on each year, we start from the beginning, because sometimes things look different each year. And sometimes it might be a bigger push in directors of special education. It might be a big push there. Or it might be a push this year is going to be in curriculum. So there's got to be a little bit more there. So it's zero-based budget, we start that every year, and it's just worked out really well. It's a concept that sometimes people have a hard time understanding, but when you have the child as being at center of that zero-based budgeting, it's an easier story to tell when it comes to those communities, and they're the ones that ultimately are going to be voting on that budget as well too, and the select board as well too. So I'm sort of a proponent of that. I'd be very interested in seeing if that would work here, both in Berlin and Boylston. I think that would be important, and I think it really works well in a regional school budget as well too. Again, there's so many variables, right? That whole transportation piece, that 100% we're supposed to get, or 100% reimbursement for transportation, right? That has never happened, and we're supposed to be getting that. That was the first caveat to becoming a regional school district, was that reimbursement for transportation. And it's been at 70 and sometimes 80, so that's how low it's been. So I was just curious on that budget cycle.
Yeah, definitely something to think about as we will have a new director of finance. So perfect timing.
Yep, agreed.
Anything else?
It's a question I ask sometimes to people I'm hiring. So a year from now, if I'm the successful candidate, a year from now, and you were evaluating me, and the process of Department of Education says, you either need improvement, you're proficient, or you're exemplary, right? Those are some of the categories that go through. If a year from now, if you were evaluating me, what would be the one thing that you'd want me to be proficient in? No, what would you want me exemplary at? What's the one thing from a year from now that you'd want me as a superintendent of this district to be exemplary in? That you could evaluate me and say, yes, you accomplished that goal.
That's tricky.
Sorry, didn't mean to put it, just
Okay. Does anyone on the school committee have,
just something you want me to be
Mike?
exemplary at.
do you wanna?
It kind of follows along with my original question that I asked you and what you just explained about zero budget. If we were to say you were exemplary at something, when you mentioned zero-based budgeting, you mentioned getting everybody to buy in. How do you deal with people, convincing people to buy in who, I'm sure one of your books there has something to do with dealing with change or people who are resistant to change. There are some people who are just want it the way they've had it, and it doesn't matter if it's new, different, or even correct versus the wrong way. So if we were going to rate you exemplary, I would expect that we would be able to say, you know, he did a hell of a job explaining this new zero-based budget to people who don't understand budgets and getting the buy-in from the community. And that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
I would have said budget related also, just because we almost had a civil war.
Yeah.
And I really need to avoid that going forward.
And by the way, it's just not this regional school district, right? So in Hampton, Wilbraham, we had the same thing sometimes, right? And that's the job of the superintendent, is to be the calm in that storm, right? But I really find if you keep it all about children, right? It's not about, you know, okay, we need another math teacher. This is the reason why. Look at this, the students' math scores, right? If you keep it all focused on children, it's an easier story to tell.
I like that. Does anyone else want to pipe in on that?
Clarity and communication about the budget.
Budget, yeah.
I would say not the budget, because I think if we have a strong finance department, I think that, I know we went through trouble with our budget, but I do think that was a result of, we weren't in the right place with the department. So for me, what I would want to see you to be, if you were selected exemplary at, is getting our students to leave high school with everything that they need to be successful
Yeah.
after high school. And that probably means with getting all the staff exemplary, getting the curriculum really proficient and great. That would be what I would like you to be exemplary at, is getting our students where they need to be after high school.
And isn't that the true test of success, right?
Right.
What are our students? Are they getting into those Ivy League schools? Are they getting to schools with the choices they want? That really is the summit of how successful we are as a district. There are a lot of wins right along the way, but when our students graduate from here, you know, what are they doing? Where are they going? How are they becoming a part of our society that is successful and ready to carry on? You know, even at Veterini, one of the first questions that even preschool parents ask me, or the kids are 2.9 years old, say, when they leave Veterini, where do they go? Where are they? What's their next step? What schools are they getting accepted into? And that really is that true test of your success, right? When students are graduating, when they're walking across that stage, from everybody in this room to all of our teachers, that's the true test of our success, that all our students are graduating and going on and moving on, right? That truly is where how we know that we're doing our job well.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to just be school.
That's right.
Right, that
That's
they're
right.
walking out of
That's
school
right,
with,
that's right, walking across
as a
that stage.
complete human. at
That's
that
right.
point, yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Portrait of a Graduate was something that was worked on this year.
Good.
And it's a really beautiful vision.
Yeah.
For our graduating students.
That's It's one of my favorite times, right, when the kids are, I mean, that really is, I'm not sure how we do it here, and I know there's, I was talking to Monday yesterday, I think 56 students graduating from here, it's right around there, am I off on a couple maybe, right around there graduating. Like, one of the things that I did as a superintendent is I had all of our school committee on stage, right, because that was truly the work that we were doing day to day, was those students walking across that stage. That was the true test of our success as well.
All right, awesome. Did anyone else want to add in on that? All right, if you have one more question, I will allow it, and then we're going to move on.
So when I just more of a statement, Nathan. So anyone that knows me, there are two things I'm looking for when I hire anybody, and I've done a lot of hiring in my career. it's compassion and hard work. Those are the two things. I truly, anything else I can teach them, anything else they can learn, we can move forward, we can teach them math, we can teach them the new program, we can teach them the curriculum. It's compassion and hard work with education. Those are everyone knows that about me. And that's truly what I will bring to this job if you think I'm a successful candidate, is that compassion and hard work. Because those are the two things that is truly needed in these jobs that we're doing. You gotta be compassionate and you gotta be willing to have hard work. And I think those are the two things that I possess. And I think you'll see that, that's the type of guy that I am. And my work ethic, the hours that I put into this, again, I was at Federini and I just came from there to here, right? So that's just who I am. And I promise you that's what I'll be doing here, just superintendent as well too. If that's what you guys choose to select me. Thanks for the opportunity to meet with everyone. It really was a pleasure.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, so Al, I'll ask you if you want to wait in the hallway while we interview Michael for 45 minutes. Yeah.
What are the other two books?
Yeah, so this is my favorite.
Yeah,
This is
Jason, I
great.
appreciate that, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the book that I'm doing this year with all of our teachers at Federini. This book is called Teach Like a Champion. There's many versions of it. This is the newest one, 3.0. It's all strategies about teaching like a champion, whether you're a veteran teacher or it's your first year teaching. So what I did is sort of our book study. So what I do is I break up our staff and everyone takes a chapter. You have to read the first chapter. So I make some humor of it. Like, this is your summer reading, ladies and gentlemen, right? Here's your book. Come pick it up before you leave. I always give a little picture of the umbrella and sitting on the beach and stuff. But they read the first chapter, and then afterwards we break up the chapters. And we each take a chapter, we each present the chapter. When we're done, we have to do sort of like a one-pager. And so we don't have to read the entire book, but everyone does a part of their thing reading it. So it's a great book. This is the newest version, 3.0. Great book to read. The other one, Brene Brown, right? Anything that she writes, it's just you can't help but it, right? So she's my guru, right? So she's always what we're looking at on how to be a better educator. So this is just her newest one. It's always a good read. But I believe in book studies with our teachers. I believe in book studies with our principals. So to make it fun, right? Start being a little bit of a competition because you had to bring food as well too. So also now, September you have maybe bagels, and by June it's like this full course meal people are having, right? Because they're all trying to outdo each other with each meal. But I always found doing the book study, and so I am strategic, right? So if Janelle hasn't worked much with Julie because one's an 8th grade teacher, one's a preschool teacher, I strategically put them together, right? So this way that they're getting to know each other a little bit better, doing a book study together, reading a little bit. It's great. So to answer your question, those are sort of the ones that are always sitting on my desk as well.
I'm familiar with the first one, but not.
This one?
Yeah, of course.
A little bit OCD, right? So that's who I am, right? But it's always page mark, right? This still holds itself, right? And it's an older book, but it's still one of the best books out there. Thank you. Okay.
That's great,
It's
thank
nice
you.
meeting everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Great, thank you. All right, Michael, oh my God.
I'm sorry, I think it was over my time.
No, you're fine. I just thought he wasn't here, but he was like hiding. Had a mini heart attack. All right, so guys, I'm just gonna grab Michael, we'll transition.
Thanks, everybody.
Al.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Nice to
Take
meet you
care.
guys all, too. Thank you very much. See you later.
So,
You too. Nice to meet you guys as well too. See you later.
We should open the door, right, because there's nobody seeing here.
all right. Go ahead, take the hot seat right up there.
Hi, Michael.
Okay, hi.
In front
How
of
are
you.
you?
Hello. Okay, all right, hi, Michael, thank you so much for coming.
Sure.
So I'm gonna give you a real quick rundown on how we're gonna run the interview.
Okay.
So we'll give you the first 2 to 3 minutes to kind of give a brief introduction of yourself to the community. And then we're gonna go around the table. We'll start with Lisa, and we'll go just right around. Everyone will have a question for you. It's the same question that we asked Al. And then after that, we'll give you a brief period, 10 minutes, if you have any questions for us. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, so without further ado, take it away.
Sure. So I gave a lot of thought to apply to this position. I think I have a lot to offer. I've been a superintendent for 22 and a half years in a variety of districts, but the majority of them have been in regional school districts, both in Maine and Massachusetts. And so, and one of them was a two-town regional school district. One was actually a one-town regional school district, if you can believe that. Nobody wanted them, so they were able to, by special act of legislature, create their own regional district. But anyway, and I think being a superintendent of a regional school district does take special skills. And it's about leadership, of bringing people together, both within the school community, to understand what you're trying to do in terms of building a vision about what your school district is about and what we do for children and families and teachers and staff. And also, how do we work with the community as a whole and think of them not only as individual communities, but also as the community of Tohoto, and how do they want to see themselves supporting the education for Berlin-Boylston students. And that's really, I think, a critical skill set to have in any kind of leader. And when I think about a leader who is doing an interim role, it really is to bridge where you've been and address as much as you can to build a great platform for the next leader to come on board and really take off. You know, I always like to think that you're doing something that's going to leave a better place. And I think that, again, the skill set that I have in terms of leadership really plays to that role quite well. About me personally, just thinking about, the commitment of this work. I really like the idea that I'm only 5 minutes away. I really like that I'm at a stage of my life where my children are grown and that I can commit to the kinds of activities that really I think a superintendent should commit to in terms of evening and activities on the weekend and things like that, so that there's a presence there, and so there's a touchstone to what they want to hear and talk about. And I don't have to speak to anything. I just have to listen and bring whatever I hear that's important back to those who need to hear that, and to give the community voice, whoever, if it's teachers or staff or students or community members. And so I think that's a great advantage to my candidacy in terms of things that I think this role will need, because there are some things that we need to work on, and it's going to take time, because it's going to take conversation, and conversations that aren't easy sometimes, but conversations that will definitely take time to do. And we're going to have to figure out how to have those conversations in an open, honest, respectful way, so that we can be great role models for kids and each other. Again, I think that's an area that I have a skill set that has come a long way since my first superintendency at 34. I was a very different person then in terms of being able to understand what voice really meant. But certainly over the years, you begin to have great mentors and colleagues who can show you what it's like to really be a good listener and a good practitioner in the school setting. So I think I can bring something to the school district. I'm not without my foibles. I'm not without making mistakes. I am who I am. I roll up my sleeve, but it's a short sleeve. So, but I do put my heart and soul into my work. And when the outcome is really shining, you have a great team. And that team will be ready for continued work with the next leader. And I think I can do that.
Great, thank you. All right, so do you want to jump into the questions? We'll start with Lisa. We'll go this way.
So just in society in general, and especially with schools, there's a growing concern about lack of transparency and trust. And so parents are getting very concerned about schools maybe not being upfront with them about issues that their child might be having physically or mentally. And so there's a lot of concern about that. And also with kids being exposed to materials or maybe lessons that the parents think are controversial or potentially damaging. And so I'm wondering what your take is on that whole situation, and also if you support notifying parents of things and also giving them the option to opt out of things that they find objectionable.
Sure. So, give me an easy question first. You know, this is a very challenging time as a society and what we're going through. And again, I go back to what I said earlier about conversation. I think that principals and teachers need to know their audience, and they need to know and understand what it is that will be well received and what won't be. My general rule of thumb is to go to the core of what we know we have to teach, and that's the Massachusetts frameworks. And that's accepted. It's not my argument to say I don't like this piece, I don't like that piece, so that is what it is. That said, there are a multitude ways to reach the goals and the objectives that are in there. And I think that's where we have to come to some grips around, well, how can we do this in a way that's respectful, because we want to respect our community. How do we respect our community when we know we've got to cover this? And what materials do we want to use? Now, obviously, there are some laws and regulations around certain topics that absolutely have to have parent communication about. But I would go back to, know your audience, know your community. You should be open and honest with them, whether it's at my level or at the principal's level, to say, ask the teachers, if you're going to have a difficult unit to teach and there are materials in there, A, make sure you have options. B, make sure you communicate what those options are ahead of time. And C, make yourself available so you can have a conversation about what those options are or could be. And maybe the parent has one too, because they understand it from a different perspective. They would like their kids to learn it, but they don't want those materials. I think that, again, if you bring them in first, you can have an attempt at showing them the materials and trying to help educate people about what is real and what is out there that's not. And I think that once you have those kinds of conversations, you can usually come to a compromise. In the end, they've got to come to school. We've got to have them there. It's better to figure out a plan of action that allows them to be included rather than excluded. And so I would say, let's work together to make sure we have a plan like that. But it has to follow what the objectives are of the Massachusetts frameworks.
And you would be in favor of notifying parents?
Yes, yeah. I'm a big proponent, I know this is televised, and I don't know how many teachers of weekly letters going home to parents. This is what we're going to be studying. This is what's going to be happening. This is the name of the book. I mean, everything's online now, so it's not as complex to pull something like that together. I know things change, and sometimes you're off a day or something like that in terms of your lesson planning. But making sure that there's a plan of action ahead helps the teacher, I think, more than anyone, to be able to lay out that letter and say on a Friday afternoon, this is what I'm planning to get to next week, and this is the study that you're going to have. So communicate.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah.
Mike, sorry.
Thanks.
Michael, Mike.
Hi, Mike. So you're working in the regional district, in our district right now, and you've worked, can't speak, let me start that again. Since you've worked in regional districts in the past and you're working here right now, you probably have a unique understanding of our particular challenges that we have right now. So what experiences from your past would you be able to draw from? How will they help you lead us through this year? And if you were hired, what would be your immediate priorities for the next 3 weeks before school starts, and then in the coming 60 to 90 days?
So let me start with those two pieces there. I've had a very linear path in the last 8 weeks in terms of what I've been able to look at and what I need to do. So in the next 3 weeks, I really need to figure out what is the plan for this year? How are we opening up school? How are we making it available to everybody? Are we really clear about what our goals and objectives are? And are things tied to that in a very coherent way so that teachers get the message that we have a plan? And even though we have an interim in different capacities, we have a plan and we have good people in those roles, and we're taking action as though it's any other year. So I think that's a real critical piece in the next 3 weeks to really unpack what we're about and where we're headed educationally, because that's what we're about. We're about education. In the next 90 days, I think my time needs to be spent really developing relationships with you as a board and bringing you into the conversation with our two communities, because it is really critical that we start our budget process early and we talk until we have a clear understanding of everything. Every time I seem to open up something, I have to unpack it even further to understand what's this about and how was it done previously. And if I'm doing that and I'm in the role, imagine what the greater community, again, talking about transparency, how do you explain our formula when the people in the business of doing it, not only myself, but other people, Desi, we can't get an agreement around what the formula is. And so I think that's the 90-day plan, is to really understand what our goals are for the year that have already been started. I don't think I'm coming in to say, oh no, let's throw that out and let's do this. But I think that we need to really talk about, let's look at a Gantt chart and look, this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to get these things done. This is who's going to take the lead, and figure out the support systems in place so that we can do that. To the earlier part of your question about regional school districts, they're complex, but I don't want to put them in a different box altogether. I mean, I was in Malden for a brief time, and you talk about neighborhoods, and each school had a neighborhood school, and that was like 7 different towns. They each had their own identity, many times over in some respects, and they were large schools, 1,000-student schools. And so it's about how, and again, I go back to what I said in my opening remarks, I think the leader is about weaving that fabric together so that when you talk about Berlin-Boylston Regional School District, you're talking about all the kids, you're blind to what town they come from, and what goals they have in the future, only that our job is to figure out how to get them there and figure out with them, not for them. And so I think that the regional school districts, what I've learned the most is you've got to be careful about, and I would say this about municipal districts too, but you've got to be careful about how you talk in a way that might disparage one community over another, one neighborhood over another. You've got to be careful about how you engage folks to make sure that you engage the right people in terms of people who really know what it is and have tentacles to the community greater, because you want to use your time wisely, right? You want people who are going to learn what it is that you're talking about, whether it's about curriculum materials or budget or special ed or whatever it's going to be, and you want to get it out there, and you want people who can help you, can be your army to really get that information out there. My chair in Hatfield when I was there, her background was marketing, and she absolutely had an amazing way to market and to figure out how to get materials, thoughts, ideas out there to people. We were very successful, and I really credit our school committee to do this. We did an override in a small town in very hard times. And I think that's a testament to their understanding that this is our message, this is what we've got to say. We've got to say it over and over and over again, and do not deviate from that message. Not in a harsh way like that, but that was our mantra. And they took it to the greater community. I took it within the schools, and we were partners in making that happen. I think collectively the teachers, administration, and the community really got together and made that happen because we were on message almost all the time, and that's very unusual. And again, that's not necessarily unique in regional schools, but what's challenging in a regional school is to get that message to bleed into the communities as though it's one message, not a Berlin message and a Boylston message, but a greater Berlin-Boylston message. So.
Great, thank you, Julie. Yes, okay. Hi, Michael.
Hi.
All right, you sort of answered this a little bit in the introduction, but I'm just gonna touch upon it again, and then I'll ask the second part of my question. How is the role of interim superintendent different than the role of an appointed superintendent? Are there any differences there? And can the district, or how does the district continue to grow with an interim superintendent?
Right. So this would be my third interim superintendency, and I think that I've handled them different depending on what I saw as the needs and the duration of the time I was going to be there to do that, and what role I was going to have after that was going to be. And I think that the key about a good interim to me is someone who comes in and strongly advocates what's already on the roadmap to go forward. So that people don't feel like, oh, another superintendent, another plan, here we go again. I hate when we talk about that, and we do that to ourselves within schools, and it's really harsh, I think, to do that. And so I really, again, my initial 3 weeks is to really get a handle on what our plan is and to move that forward so that people know that, yes, we have somebody leave, but there's somebody in their place and they're going forward. And there's no question about what we're doing and how we're going forward. I think that the nature of the interim role is really then carved out by the work that we do together with the, partnering with the school committee. And, if there's specific tasks that need to happen, then during the time that I'm interim, I'll be frank, sometimes it's easier when an interim does certain things that it's harder for somebody who's coming and wants to stay. And that's just harder. And so I'd want to hear about those and learn about how we could do those together in a way that's respectful to the organization and moving the organization further. The key to a good interim is not to disrupt the work that teachers and principals and staff do every day. It's to make sure that you're complementing their work and you're able to be a resource to move it forward. Did that cover everything?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, Jess.
All right. Evening, thanks for coming in. What culture did you create and support in your past districts? And what culture do you hope to foster with the staff, school committee, students, parents, and towns, administrators, and finance committees?
I think people would describe me as very approachable, creating a culture of openness, a culture of being able to talk with them and understand the issues before trying to say, this is how it's going to be. I don't need to be right. I don't need to be, the last word on anything. But I do need to follow the policies and the regulations of the state and the laws of the state. And kind of going back to my teacher days, I need to educate people to get there. And so the culture that I like to think that I build is one that he's fair. And fairness is in the land. And I don't think I'm too far away from what's already in place. So I think that's a good starting point, a good platform to jump off on. But that's a culture that I want. I want people to feel like they can come to the central office, not as a way to get around people, get around principals or directors, but simply to say, there's a conversation going on and we thought you needed to hear about it if you haven't already. And maybe I do, and maybe I don't. Maybe it's something that, really needs to stay where it is, and I don't need a part of it, but thank you for sharing with me. And I appreciate that you were willing to come to my office and do that, and share it with me via an email. I think that's the kind of culture that makes people want to come to the school district. Because when you have a leader that is not creating fear, then you will have a leader that welcomes everyone and engages with them. And again, it's not to have a one-way fits all, but at the same time, there are practices and policies that we all have to follow. I have to do it, you have to do it. And as long as I'm demonstrating that and not secretly, giving out something on one side of my mouth that shows, I think that's the best kind of culture that can be.
Thank you.
Hi.
So I went a little rogue with my question, so I tried to recreate it.
Okay.
So what I had asked Al was, I had heard that he did a little bit of research, but you actually have been here, so you know what our difficulties are and what our struggles are. And so I guess my question would be, what makes you want this position, knowing that it's challenging, right? And how are you going to help the community feel better about the future, how we're going to move ahead? And by community, I mean parents as well as taxpayers who don't have students in the school.
Right. So I think the challenge is what excites me, because it's a puzzle, and it needs to be figured out. And we need to think about different ways of moving forward when we do this work. And I want to allay the fears of the communities as a whole. We're not different in terms of our challenges. There may be some things that are a little more public out there, but not really. We're the same as a lot of districts. And, when I think about districts that I came to work in, it didn't faze me to know that there were particular kinds of challenges. I went to one district that had a culture of a superintendent who was tyrannical. I'll put it up there. I knew the person. I never thought of that person in that way, but come to find out, that's really how I operated. And it took me a long time to move that culture to a different place in terms of what calm and a lack of fear looked like. And I learned that firsthand. And, I came to a district that had a finance authority board. Didn't know what one was when I came there, learned very quickly. People said, oh, it's gonna last 5 to 7 years. We were done in 2 years. We cleaned it up pretty well. Now, and I do say we had a great finance team. I came in and, knew how I thought it needed to be approached. The finance authority chair was great to work with. He really knew his stuff from DOR. So I learned a lot. And we were able to be done in 2 years. And it surprised me. I mean, I didn't say, oh, we'll be done in 2 years, and that was a goal that I had. But, just knowing that being able to get out from that cloud would allow the community to start to look at the district as with pride, because it was all about education and not about these terrible finance issues that, they had lots of headlines on. And, oh, by the way, the finance issues weren't all terrible. They were just not well communicated to the parties that really needed to know, and a little better organization of the internal offices so people knew who was doing what and who was watching what. So it didn't take rocket science to figure out how to fix it. But everybody thought, oh, we were that district with that finance authority board under that cloud. And we were able to move forward pretty quickly and get onto the business of educating kids. So I think that's the challenge here, is to, again, have good communication and transparency in that wide network of people who we're talking to, so they better understand what's going on and how it's going to have to be, so that they can start being proud of their individual student and the schools that they attend, and getting the education they know is a quality education.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Keep going, like you're gonna ask questions.
All right, well, thank you so much. Did anyone have any other lingering questions before we move on to letting Michael ask us questions? Do you want to bring that, did you guys have a chance to look at that?
Mhm.
Did you want to bring that up? Or do you want me to bring that up now? Laurie didn't have a chance.
So I just,
I didn't have a chance, I didn't read the whole thing, sorry.
just so, you usually Google a candidate.
Sure.
And a lot of the community has as well. And so I just came across
Thank you.
an article about your departure from Neshoba Regional School District in 2015.
Mhm.
And I was curious if you could speak to that situation and leaving that district.
Sure. It was very difficult to leave. But this is about transparency and dynamics. I will tell you, this is my vantage point. You'd have to talk to other people who had a different vantage point and what they were thinking and doing. I went through the evaluation process in April. I got glowing remarks and glowing ratings. And we went through a change in the school committee, and a new chair came on board. And I had a great relationship with all of the chairs up to that point. It was a different dynamic in terms of how the school committee operated. And I thought I would have a good dynamic with the new chair. I knew her for a long time and was knew what she had to offer and so forth. But she had a vision of her own of what she wanted to accomplish, and didn't think with me in the superintendency, and I'd been there 13 years. So I had developed a culture that was, I'll be honest, it wasn't driven by me, but I was a big part of it. And I think she wanted to drive the culture to the goals and directions that she wanted to go. I think I remember the day vividly. I literally, she didn't have a meeting. She came in one day with another member of the school committee and simply said, we'd like you to go. And that was the conversation that we had. I got no explanation. I got a nice letter of recommendation. She just said, I want you to go. And literally, I thought, okay, well, my contract's coming up and I'll leave in June. And a week later, she was in my office and said, no, you misunderstood. We want you to go now. And I was like, why? And she wouldn't give me an answer, and I didn't push it. Once that barrier is broken, that there's no relationship, you just got to go. And I wanted to go out on high. At the same time that all of this was happening, just going to take a breath. Sorry, my wife was sick, and it was a little bit of a gift.
Sorry to get personal, I apologize.
It's not a foreign question, and I end up doing the same thing every time. So yeah, that was it, and I had that gift of time. So it worked out the way it did. And then I was able to kind of scale back and go into the director of special ed role, which I'd done previously, and it just gave me my nights back and a little bit more life with my two kids who were still in high school. And yeah. So
Thank you.
I'm still very fond of that. I lived in the community throughout. My kids both graduated from Neshoba. I attended every event that I could. I don't think if you talk to anybody who knew me, they had anything against me or any issue with me. And there was no what's the word I'm looking for? Malfeasance or anything like that. Yeah, it's a great school system.
Thank you, and my apologies.
No worries at all. You're not the first.
Okay, great. Did anyone have any other questions? Thank Thank you. All right, so Dean, I wanted to leave a little bit of time. It's a little bit before 6, so it's perfect. If you have any questions for us, I know you've been working here for a couple months, so I don't know if.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any questions. I think the conversation that I would want to have would be around how can we develop the partnership between the superintendent and the school committee? There are some practices, to be frank, that I saw with the previous superintendent that I would want to grow from and make sure that we understand how differently it can work in terms of being a school committee and a superintendent, and do that well so that everybody is getting their needs met. And so that's a big part of developing what's part of the relationship piece of the evaluation, right? It's that school committee superintendent relationship and understanding, what do you need from me in terms of communication? What do you want? How do you want it presented? All things that if I don't do it the way you thought you were asking about, then I'm gonna get slammed for not doing it or not doing it well. But if I'm not clear and I don't ask, so that's on me too. I'm accountable for that. Then, how do we do that? How do we have those conversations and just be able to do it softly, calmly, respectfully, and understand that, and I don't want to in any way estimate what the issues are that we have here, because we have issues. But this too shall pass, and we'll get through them. We'll move through them. And like I say, the experience at Neshoba was a good one in that regard, because, man, when I got there, I never had a reporter come to my office before, and I think my first or second day I had reporters at my door there, because it was very much in the news. And it was like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's figure this out. And so we did.
All right. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I
It's a tough
really appreciate, I really appreciate you coming out and
Sure.
talking about yourself and letting us get to know you a little bit better,
Yeah, I
because
know.
we've been working with you now for a couple months.
Yeah.
And didn't know a lot of this stuff, so it's
Yeah.
great. Really appreciate it. All right, so the next thing we are going to do is I'm going to ask you to wait in the hallway, probably because it's easier. We're just gonna talk about the candidates and take a vote right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so just for the public, time is of the essence. And the main reason is because Carol's last day is August 30th. And it would be great to have somebody, once we vote on a superintendent, we plan to meet again on Thursday. And in this meeting, we will work on the contract that would be in place between the district and the interim superintendent. Once that's all set, then everything should be official and the person can get started. But ideally, so school starts in 3 weeks from tomorrow. Teachers go back in 2 weeks from Monday. So I know it seems like we're moving quickly, but I think the goal is to make sure that we have somebody in place and up to speed before that first day of school, so that none of us are floundering and we all know where we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do, and we have another great school year. So we will take a few minutes. We'll discuss, deliberate, take a vote, and then I'll come out in the hallway and let you guys know, and then we'll adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
All right?
Sounds good.
So feel free
Good
to.
luck.
Thank you, Michael. I really
Michael.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. So I felt like that went really well. I think we got a lot of information about both candidates. Really, really hard to deliberate about people in public. And I remember this firsthand because I had to get appointed to the school committee, and there were 6 people that had to do that, and I was one of the 6. And then they made us sit all in there. And oh, by the way, we all had masks on. So on top of that, we had to present with a mask on, which was really, really hard. So yeah, I just remember how awkward it was sitting here and cringing, like listening for them to talk about you. So I figured it would be easier if they didn't have to listen and we could all speak freely. I remember from that meeting, the best way to start is maybe we talk about like what things we liked about each person. I think that's an easier way to get into the conversation and then go into maybe, I don't even want to use the word negative, just, pros and cons. And then we can take concerns. Yes, thank you, Jess. And then we can move forward with the vote. So, I can start. So I thought they both bring good, specific experience to what our district is looking for, that being that they both had really good regional superintendent experience. They both have done this job before, so neither one would be walking into a job being like, oh, I've never done this before, I have no idea what they're doing. So do you guys want to start? Let's start with positives. Let's start with positives. That's an easy positive right there.
I would just piggyback that positive and say Michael's done the interim role 3 times. I think that's a very big positive.
Yep.
Because I think an interim role is very different than a superintendent role.
Yep.
I don't think Al has done the interim, because I didn't read it on his thing, right?
Only he said 3 months he did, so. But yeah, the one district he worked for, he was interim for 3 months after that to help them hire someone, but that's not really, I agree, totally different experience. Yeah.
So I would just to piggyback on what you said.
With Michael, you said 3, but I'm only seeing Lester in 2017. Did I miss?
For Michael, he did say 3.
He did say 3, I just don't know if he
I
just
just
put it on
didn't
there.
see it.
Hatfield, he was assistant superintendent in Malden.
I mean, he was
No,
in
Lester,
interim curriculum, and intern superintendent Lester.
and then it looks like he went back, he wasn't interim in Hatfield, he did a 3-year stint.
Oh, maybe he just didn't write interim.
Well, it was
It
3
says
years,
retired, yeah,
and it says 2021 to 2024.
he just didn't like what it said.
Yeah.
I thought that was great, he had a lot of energy,
I liked his energy, yeah.
same enthusiasm.
Yeah, I felt like he had like a really clear vision, like he was just very organized in his approach.
The way he explained things to me,
Yeah.
I was able to understand it better. Yeah, I agree.
I also liked how Al had book study groups. I think the culture within the schools and teachers, knowing teachers and working together kind of carries on the half days that we have planned.
Right.
The importance of that work.
I also like that Al is just a completely fresh set of eyes. I feel bad that Michael has, not bad, Michael has been with the district for a couple months and in a different role, and I don't know if he's gotten bogged down in details. But Al is just coming in from like the bird's eye view, which might actually be easier because he's not overwhelmed with some of the minutia, maybe, I don't know.
Plenty of time for that.
Right. Well, it's a different role too. I mean, it's so different, and I think we have to remember that the finance director role is just being a business manager is not being a superintendent. They're two very separate roles, and they should complement each other. They're not the same thing.
Right, and I think too that Michael's job with what he did now for the district, he came in, as we know, it was a mess.
Yes.
He did the very best he can, but we have to view him on.
Yeah,
Yes,
it has to be
resume.
totally separate, yes.
Yeah, we have to remove all of that piece and focus on all the things he said, in my opinion, for Michael. Moving the district, into a place of calmness and respect. I think right now we have some significant rebuilding to do internally with the administrative teams and externally with the communities. This is no big secret. We are not a well-liked committee. We are not a well-respected committee. Take it or leave it, that's where we are. And what I liked about Michael is he was in the trenches with this committee when we were at our worst as a committee. And still, he wants to stay. And what he wants to do is work to rebuild this so then we can connect with the community so we can be a successful district. That I liked. Al, on the other hand, I heard a lot of, that's just the kind of guy I am. This is the type of person I am. It's just the kind of guy I am. And for me, it seems always to me is that people that are boasting about themselves rather than working with the groups, that's a flag for me.
Although he is selling himself to us.
Yeah, but so wasn't Michael, but he was doing it, let's do this together. Guys, we have to be calm, we have to be respectful. We have to do this as a group. We've done some damage, and I know he has that internal peace. But I didn't hear Michael at once say, this is just the kind of person I am. And even when he had the opportunity to show what kind of person he was, with his wife being sick, he took a moment of pause. And that would be the kind of person that I would have as a superintendent of this district, in my opinion. I like how Al is about zero budgeting, but I just would caution us to hold Michael accountable for the finance piece when that's not what he's applying for here. He's going for the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
I thought I heard a lot from Al about community, talking to the community, building up. He said the whole thing about 8 to 10, he's out in the schools, in the senior centers, right? That's where, senior centers is where there's issues, if you want to talk about image. Right?
I agree. I just don't know that seniors respond really well to that. That's the kind of guy I am. I think they respond better to
I think it was
Michael's.
more, he was talking more about explaining what they're doing because they won't necessarily get those communications every day or every week. I thought it was a positive thing. So
I agree. I think it's positive to be in the communities. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, because we know people aren't reading emails.
Correct.
Unfortunately.
Correct. I just think we have done some, we need to work with these communities. The schools, we're in good shape. I mean, I know we don't have a finance director, and in that sense, but the schools we are great schools. We have great schools. And I believe in our schools. I think we need to have long-term, I do think we need to have somebody in, we need to put out a search, we need to do it the correct way.
Oh,
we need to have a
yeah.
panel, that whole thing. But to have somebody as the interim, what did he say when I asked that question about what makes a good interim superintendent? And Michael said it's about bridging that gap so that the next leader that comes along can do their job. Versus what Michael said. It's kind of the same thing, an interim versus a regular superintendent, and I don't think it is.
Well, I think also we don't want to be stagnant as a district. So I think both of them said they want, I felt that, forward direction and not just hold down the fort, which I think is important.
That's all I have to say.
I really liked
Right.
what Al did with the books, with the
Yeah.
teachers. I mean, that's fun and it's inspiring and builds community and hopefully improves teaching. And I like that.
I agree.
The article that I found, so, simple Googling, it was a 2015 article written by Ken Cleveland. And it talked about his departure and there was concerns on communication with the school committee and requests not recognized in terms of contracts and not getting approved by the school committee. And so that gives me pause. It's a little bit more information. I guess executive session notes were opened up the December after he left. So that gives me pause. Because it also said that there was not good working relationships with town administration either. which again, take with a grain of salt, because if you're fighting for a district, you might not be buddy-buddy with the
Right.
town administrators, so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he did get a good review from the school committee, he said, right?
Michael, that, yeah.
Even though they.
That's-
His evaluation.
Yeah, it would probably be worth it to go back and read those minutes, and that was a long article. It was really hard to, I was trying to read bits and pieces. I had not seen that. And even though we had Michael in the district, I had just received his resume 2 days ago when we all got it. So I don't, because we hired him through TMS, he doesn't actually work for us. TMS works for us. He's a consultant for TMS, so he actually doesn't work for us. He works for TMS as a consultant. And I guess for me, it's really hard to, you get to know somebody because you've been working with them and their habits. And so it's really difficult to separate what we've gotten to know from Michael and this new Michael that came to interview. One of the things I noticed is it didn't seem like, he said he was willing to come to meetings, but one of the things I've noticed is that he didn't seem interested to come to a lot of the nighttime meetings. So that was a concern, and I know he likes to work from home, but again, like, we don't know what the other person's gonna do because we haven't worked with him, so it's just really hard to separate that because we know that, but we don't know what the other person is, and anyone can say whatever they want. It's until you actually have experience working with them. To your point, Julie, about this is the kind of guy I am, this is the kind of guy I am, that's the kind of guy he perceives himself as being, but we don't really know until we work with them. But we have worked with Michael, and just that would be my one concern about some of the things I've seen in working with him personally. So, anything else? It's hard. Anything?
I think that's the hard part, is that their strengths are completely different.
Yes.
And we have a lot of needs. What I found really consoling is that both of them said, and I didn't mean to make it sound like our district is not doing well, because we are doing well, but, it's been a bit of a bumpy ride at times. And, some things we've handled well and some things we haven't. And so I wanted to know why both of them would want the job, because you're coming into kind of like a little bit of a tangle. You're gonna have to pull a little bit to get out, and you're gonna have to work with people. And I think the real struggle is we have two very different people who have different sets of skill sets and would be beneficial in two different ways. And that's the hardest part, is trying to figure out what would be best for us going forward right now. And that's what I'm struggling with as I go through the mountain of notes that I took and their resumes, looking for something to stand up to make it obvious.
Yeah, and obviously it's really tough in general to hire someone in a couple days, but unfortunately that's the position that we're in. And just a reminder, as long as I am on the school committee, we will be doing a full search. This is not just, we're gonna hire an interim, and if it works out, you're in. If the interim person, I don't know if either of these people would be interested, wants to apply for the full superintendent role, but we will be doing a full search. There will be a search committee, there will be an interview process. So the first round of interviews would be conducted by the search committee, and then the school committee would have to do the second round of interviews. So we'd be looking for teachers, parents, principals to serve on this committee. It would probably take place sometime in the winter, late fall, early winter. I'd assume we'd be, of course, hiring probably right at the beginning, middle of budget season. But from what I learned from MASC, we're very late in the game. So most people that are interested in being an interim already either have something to do, or they've decided they don't want to do this right now. So it's not a huge candidate pool.
So I don't know if they've changed their practices. I was when we hired Jeff, I was on that search committee. They picked a person from Berlin and from Boylston, and I was the treasurer of the ESPTO. So the chair couldn't do it, and they asked if I would do it. And I believe we did. I think we did in the spring, but they may have it different now. But even then, it was early spring. But there were people from the community. There were select board members. There were school committee members. It was a really nice group of people, and I just want to kind of put that out to the public, because when we go forward, it's not the school, it's a group of people that would be putting, their heads together to see what they want for the future of this district.
I agree.
So,
But I'm glad you explained why we have to do this so quickly right now and that we don't have the luxury of time.
Yeah. Yeah, we need someone to get ramped up.
Many people reached out to on different recommendations, and it was
Yes.
2 people that were interested.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah, and I called MASS, we called NES, whatever. I reached out, NESDA. We reached out to MASC. MASC was the one that provided Al. We reached out to old superintendents. I've reached out to people that came and did trainings for us. We spoke with all the principals and asked if they had any leads. So, yeah, this was not taken lightly. It's just, I mean,
Megan, if I could, I'd like to give you, I don't think you get the credit that you deserve. You have given up. I can't even,
Thank you.
I can't even get to tell the public how much of her time. She's given, she has small children, they were sitting in the back. She's given up vacation time, she's given up days with them, she's given up nights with them. She spends almost all of her time on the phone or contacting people or researching, going over to central office, trying to lend a hand. Like, thank you so much for stepping up because you've gone above and beyond what anyone could have ever asked you to do. And I know I am incredibly grateful, and the community should know what you're trying to do to make us stay afloat and go in a positive direction. So thank you. You
Thank you.
sacrificed a lot, and I'm grateful.
Yes, thank you. I mean,
Thank
I
you,
really
guys.
appreciate it. It sounds like it's more than full-time even, what you're doing.
It
On a
really is.
volunteer basis.
just the past couple days, but thank you guys
Yeah, it's been
so much.
wonderful.
I just want, thank you so much. I just want people to know that, to your point,
It's important.
time has been put into this.
Yes.
It's not like a knee jerk.
It's not like we're just trying to fill the role. There's been a lot
No,
of research, and
yeah,
you've done a lot of it, so.
thank you. And yeah, I, it would have been great if we had, 10 people and we could have done a first round interview and a second round interview and had more input and had more time to do more research, but we don't. So do you guys want to vote now, or does anyone have anything else to say? Julie, you said you didn't have anything else? Or
No, I don't have
I thought you
anything
said
else.
that. Mike, did you have anything else? I want to make sure. You guys ready to vote?
Well, that's a different question.
Right, I know.
What is
I
it?
know.
I guess someone has to make.
I said, are you ready to vote?
I guess someone has to make a motion as to who they think should be, that's usually what we do.
I move to appoint Al Ganam as the interim superintendent.
Second.
Okay, Mike and Lisa. All right, any discussion on that?
I think the MASC Tracy Norbeck's recommendation, I've heard her speak at the conference, and, as a field agent, she is a very dynamic,
Yeah.
respected person, and a personal recommendation from her I hold in high regard, aside from his presentation as a person, too.
Yeah, she did. Tracy is the one that, so just so everyone knows, again, Tracy recommended him to me, and I texted Tracy back and said, well, I see he was reported to the Board of Ethics, so I think I'm gonna pass on that. And she said, I urge you to call him and talk to him. He's a great candidate. So I even gave Tracy an easy out and she didn't take it. She said he's a great guy. So I listened to her and I called him and I agree.
Well, and you want to explain what the MASC is for the community?
Yeah, so MASC is the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. So it's a group, it's a not-for-profit organization. Most of the people that work for MASC, they have been doing this their whole life. They're experts in the field as far as open meeting law and how school committees operate and how school districts operate and how budgets work and all that. So they're very well connected in the state, I think is the best way to put it, right? Tracy's part of the board of that group, I believe. She actually offered to come to a meeting and give us any advice that we needed. And I believe Al would need a waiver. I don't know from Michael, but Tracy offered to help me apply for that waiver. So it's a great resource for us. It's something we pay into, our district pays into, and we all have resources. They put on trainings and they come and do trainings for us, but great resource for all school districts across the state. All right, any conversation? So the motion on the table is to hire Al. It was seconded. All right, so it will be easier to do a roll call vote on that? All right, Lisa, I will start with you. Sorry. Okay, Lisa's an aye, Mike.
Aye.
All right, Julie.
I'm a no.
Okay, Julie's a no. All right, Laurie.
This is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an aye.
Okay, Jess.
Yes. I second, it's very hard. I'm an aye as well.
Okay, I'm an aye as well. So that motion passes 5-1. We have ourselves an interim superintendent. It is 6:20. I'm gonna let them know you want to leave.
My family's already there.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, Paul.
You had another business item?
Yes, thank you. So the other thing we had on the agenda was to vote a finance director. So right before Carol gave me her resignation, she hired a finance director. I think given the fact that she is leaving and we just appointed someone new, I think that the right thing to do is to let the new person make a decision on if that's a person they want to work with. So now that we know Al is going to be our interim, I think we give Al a little bit of time, not much, but a little bit of time to make a decision. And we're meeting again Thursday. If that's enough time, that would be great to get that vote in there so we don't have to meet again next week. If not, we can get a Zoom vote in once Al has had adequate time.
Megan, can you refresh my memory? What happened last week at that meeting?
Which meeting?
I feel like we already voted on that.
We did not.
We tabled it. We just discussed.
It wasn't on the agenda.
It was not on the agenda.
Ah, okay.
I put it on because I thought we were gonna vote on it, but then after much thought, I think it makes sense for, like we said, the finance director and the superintendent it should be a really strong partnership. I don't know that we've had that lately in our district. And so I think that it's only fair to let that person decide who he wants to work with. And then the school committee, so essentially the superintendent hires that role, the school committee votes. Kind of to affirm that decision, is my understanding.
And when did you say you wanted to table that to?
So we have to meet again Thursday. What I'm hoping is that will give Al enough time to make a decision on what he wants to do. And then it's not on the agenda, but I did put on there any business not foreseen by the chair within 48 hours. Because if Al feels he's ready to make that decision by Thursday, I would love to do that. And then this committee will not meet again until August 27th, because God knows we need a break. And we'll meet is it August 27th, that Tuesday before the first day of school? Okay.
Yep.
And that will be with both Carol and the interim superintendent. All right, so I guess we don't need to notify the people in public. I guess what we can do is we can adjourn the meeting right now and then I'll let them know. Are you guys okay with that?
Oh, yeah, are we having a meeting on Thursday?
We are
Okay,
supposed to,
I missed that part.
Thursday at 5. The way it's gonna work, we'll go into open session. We're gonna go into executive session. We will negotiate the contract with Al in executive session. Al can step out, we can negotiate. I spoke with our attorneys this morning. And then we'll go back into open session and we will vote on the terms of that contract. The big thing we'll have to discuss is salary, and any type of other time off, stuff like that. But we should have, our attorneys will be providing a blanket contract for us to work off of this week. The other thing I'm still waiting on is just some detail to see what type of wiggle room we have with the numbers and the finances. I still don't have that information. I am hoping I will have that by Thursday. Or at least we will have something, hopefully, Wednesday night or first thing Thursday before we go into that session. All right, anything else? Thank you guys all for coming. All right, so could I please have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right, Julie?
Second.
Laurie? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, I'm an aye as well. Thank you so much. Motion passes. All right, guys. All right, so